Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Jeannie's 4th week in a row on public access.
That's right. This is yeah, I'm getting to be a regular. You
Oh, Tom knows that. He was producer of the year.
Yeah, the two of us could, you know.
Frank Stritto talking about movies.
What movie we got this week, Frank?
This is another Hitchcock movie, The Lady Vanishes. And you've had a few before. You've had a silent film from the 1920s, and let's see, about 2 weeks ago you had Stage Fright from late 1940s, and this is 1938, and it is one of Hitchcock's best film of the 1930s. And if there was any doubt about Hollywood begging him to come over, when this film came out, it erased all that because it was a big hit. It was widely praised, and I think it was it didn't win any Oscars, but I think the New York Film Critics named it the best film of the year. It won one major best film award, but not an Oscar. And not too long after it came out, Hitchcock would be in Hollywood for the rest of the decade.
Up to 48.
Yeah, and then he started through World War II, and then he started traveling around. And another interesting thing about this film, it's 1938. It was filmed in 1937. Hitler's been in power 5 years. There is no war yet in Europe, but people see it coming. And they don't name the country that this takes place in. This takes place in a very dire place where you don't want to be. And there's secret agents, and there's a lot of things going on. And you watch it today, you say, well, this must be Nazi Germany, and it probably was meant to be, but they never mention that. It's a fictitious country name. Because they saw the war coming, they knew what it was up, and Hitchcock had worked a lot in Germany, and he no doubt had a lot of German contacts, so he knew what was going on in Germany, as the whole world did. Only those who didn't want to know didn't know. So this is kind of this is a pre-Nazi, a pre-World War II anti-Nazi film, anti-totalitarian film, I guess. But it's not a message film. It's a thriller, and it's just what the title says. In the first few minutes, the lady, an elderly lady, disappears, and her friend, a young woman, keeps looking for her on the train. 99% of the movie takes place on a train. And so, where do you hide a woman on a train? And then the drama unfolds. I won't say any more because I don't want to give it away.
Last night I watched Brian De Palma's Body Double. Have you seen that?
I've seen Body Double.
1984-ish.
Yep.
So it's getting old now. I don't know, it just kind of fell flat, I thought, at the end. But that's a similar thing. The lady gets murdered. She doesn't really vanish. She gets followed and murdered.
Yeah, I think Brian De Palma's films, there's great scenes in them, but he is not a storyteller.
Yeah.
It is.
And I bring him up because doesn't he follow Hitchcock?
Yeah, there's a lot of Hitchcockian influences in him, and his earlier films, especially Sisters, and I guess with the Untouchables, he started to drift away from the Hitchcock mold, but Body Double was certainly in the Hitchcock mold. It was kind of like a Vertigo on steroids in a certain way.
Well, what was weird is you said about his great scenes, and I'm thinking, boy, I tuned the movie in the middle or something, and he's got this beach scene with this beach house, and the beach house is magnificent, and you say, wow, he must have walked by that and said, I need that in my movie. It was so magnificent, and it catches your attention. But you're right, it was a great scene, but then the movie itself doesn't really go as far as the scene could have taken it.
Yeah. And that in a sense it's Hitchcocking, because if you Hitchcock, and not in this movie, but Hitchcock would take a long time to build up to his classic scene. I would say, all told, he pays off better than De Palma
yes,
tends to pay off.
Absolutely.
I am a fan of De Palma, of his earlier work. I haven't seen much from him in the last 10 years. He's made movies in the last 10 years. I just haven't seen them. But his stuff from the 80s and 90s, for a while, I didn't miss his movies. And let's see, I'm just looking it up on the Internet Movie Database. Body Double gets a 6.5. I guess I'd agree with that. I would probably rate it above that. But I'm waffling it because it came out in 1984, and I think I saw it 3 times in '84. But there's a long story behind that. But I haven't seen it since, so I shouldn't say anything good or bad about the movie. But I do remember some magnetic scenes. And anyway, but yes, Brian De Palma certainly early in his career took a lot from Hitchcock. And Hitchcock in a movie you showed about a year ago, not the Saboteur, Sabotage. Killed a child. A bomb blows up and it kills the child, and people left the theater. They were so upset. And after that, Hitchcock said, "Never kill a child." And in the '80s, when Brian De Palma was being dismissed as a Hitchcock clone, he starts The Untouchables intentionally killing a child right on screen. There's a bomb blows up and kills a child. And that was his way of saying, "I don't listen to Hitchcock in everything I do."
Well, would you think that as directors go, the directors follow Hitchcock the way musicians follow the Beatles? He's sort of like the guidepost.
You're always trying to lure me into these music things. I don't know anything about music.
just as a point of reference,
directors
look up to Hitchcock more than, say, Francis Ford Coppola. He's more of a body of work.
Well, I think, if you watch Hitchcock's movies, you certainly get good ideas for great scenes. Has Hitchcock inspired more people than Francis Ford Coppola? No doubt, Hitchcock's probably inspired more people than most any director you can name.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can take inspiration from Hitchcock because the style is so unique, and you say, gee, I can do something like that. He affected the whole generation of directors that came after him, including, I would say, Francis Ford Coppola.
Right.
Coppola in some of his movies will take a long time to build up to a great scene, and that is when and I'm not blaming the younger generation, but when the movies have a certain pace, when you see a movie that's a different pace, it's kind of hard to get into sometimes. Like if you see 10 thrillers made in the 1990s, and then you see one from the 1930s, you say, "Oh God, is anything ever going to happen here?" and all that. But it's just a different pace, and once you get into it, it moves better.
We have 70 seconds left, and Tom has a question for you.
Okay.
Now, where did Hitchcock get his?
Where did Hitchcock get his inspiration?
His inspiration, his director techniques, skills.
Techniques.
He learned them from the bottom up. Now, I can't name any. I mean, he was not silent on movies he thought were good, but most of the movies he talked about most, that he admired most, were movies that were made after he was an established filmmaker. Mm-hmm. He learned them from the bottom up, and going back, he was in the movies in the 1920s. In those days, with a low budget, I guess the same is true today. Whether you were called the director, the screenwriter, everything, you did everything to get a movie out there. You had to know it from that. So I think he hit on the editing. Certainly, the working in Germany. Some of his early work has especially expressionistic flavor. I got no seconds. Okay, the movie you showed of his from the 1920s, The Lodger.
All right.
Okay.
Strongly inspired by Germany. Okay, you got to go. I'll talk to you next week.
9 p.m. tomorrow night. That's it, people. Thank you very
Thanks a lot.
much. Visual.